had great wealth and power because of that, and one of the princes who was fighting for the kingdom, remember we're talking about all the assassinations that took place in the late Sheila period, one of the rivalries for the throne, one of the rivals for the throne was supported by Changbogo. And Changbogo and his wealth and his army helped this prince to get the throne. And once this prince became king, Changbogo wanted to be paid. And what did he want?
Ships.
I told you this morning. He wanted a royal marriage. He wanted to marry. He wanted to marry the sister or the daughter of this king, and that would set him up as a royal in-law. But what do we know about Sheila society? Was it hierarchical?
Yes.
Whoa, was it hierarchical? And it was this way out of line for this pirate to ask for, and yet he demanded for it. And what did he get for his demand?
He was
killed.
Faux show.
And so that's a description of what the end of the Sheila period was like. It was a lot of chaos, and things gradually started to fall apart. Various regional leaders started to rise up, and when the regional leader rises up, he's not going to pay his taxes. He rises up and says, "You want your taxes? Come and get it." And these various regional leaders rose up, and those in the area of Pekche, former Pekche, united under a guy named Kianhuan. We saw him before, and he's the one that attacked the palace at Hosokjang. And the leaders up in the north, they rose up and coalesced around the later Koguryo people, and that's the way the later Three Kingdoms period developed. Okay, I'll tell you more about the rise of Wanggon. Maybe we'll have time for that tomorrow. Okay. So anyway, that's what this tomb means to me. It's a tomb symbolizing the decline of Sheila, and yet at its height, Sheila was a very cosmopolitan place. So cosmopolitan that people like Brother Bogdia here would come in, and there were apparently real Bogdians here. Otherwise, where do you get the idea of making such a guy? You know, he's clear evidence there were Bogdians here in Korea at that point. Okay, let's go up and look at the tomb. It's got a very nice set of the zodiac around it. So you can pick your critter and take a picture by it. Cured and they charge admission, and it's a big deal to go see the Kim Il-sung tomb. And it's got the zodiac symbol, so it's a very nice tomb. But as I mentioned before, the scholars who really have studied it are quite convinced that it was not Kim Il-sung's tomb. But they had to have a nice one because Pak Chung-hee wanted to have one, and so there it is. But let me talk about Kim Il-sung. I mentioned him briefly in the lecture I gave to the India students, and Spencer's heard this forward and backwards, so he knows the story. But the absorption of Kaya by Sheila is marked by Kim Il-sung. Kim Il-sung's grandfather was a Kaya general. Now that's a very interesting thing, because when Sheila conquered Kaya, you know, if it was the family of the general, you think it would be what I call the Queen of Hearts rule. The Queen of Hearts was what?
What did
the Queen of Hearts say?
Yeah. Off with his head?
Off with their heads, off with their heads. And so when you go in and conquer another country, most of the time it's the Queen of Hearts rule. Off with their heads, off with their heads. But not for the conquest of Kaya by Sheila. And the evidence of that is clear, that here this grandson of one of the last Kaya generals is a important, prominent general in Sheila society. How important and prominent was Kim Il-sung? Well, he was the head of the armies that led the battle against Pekje first and against Koguryo for the conquest of those other two kingdoms to bring us to the unification. What date was the unification?
668.
668, that's correct. They conquered Pekje in 660, and then in 668 they conquered Koguryo, and there's the unification of Korea by the Sheila dynasty. Who did it? A Kaya general. Now, not only was the Kaya general trusted to be in charge of the army, his background in the military goes back to the Hwarang school. And he was the leader of the Hwarang school. When you say Hwarang to most Koreans, they'll say Kim Il-sung. And as a leader of the Hwarang Knights, you know, he was the leader of this spirited movement, this ideology that led to unification. So here, Kim Il-sung plays an important part in ideology. and as well as politically, as well as militarily. And also there's a social dimension to the thing, and that is that Kim Il-sung's sister was married to Kim Chun-chu. Who's Kim Chun-chu? He's the crown prince who turns into the king, who's the first king of unified Korea.
Wow.
And he is the man who has the idea of going to China, to the Tang Dynasty, and saying, hey, quit beating your head against the wall against Goguryeo, because Tang has attacked Goguryeo 4 times and failed. And Tang replaced the Sui dynasty, and the Sui dynasty, how do you spell Sui? S-U-I, S-U-I. The Sui dynasty tried 3 times to attack Goguryeo, and all failed. So when people talk about the multiple invasions of Korea, and they talk about how Sui tried so many times and Tang tried so many times, I like to point out, I'm the minimalist on the invasion thing, right? Mm-hmm. I like to point out that those invasions, none of them were successful. Okay, so I think qualitatively there's a difference between an invasion that's repelled and an invasion that comes through and with rape, pillage, and burn. Right? So I think that's a qualitative difference that should be observed. Yeah.
So Kim Chun-chu was Kim Yun-shin's in-law.
Brother-in-law. Yeah.
But he was later a king.
Yeah. So he was the crown prince.
And what was his name?
Kim Chun-chu. He later becomes Munyol-wang, and he's the king who is the crown prince who proposes this alliance with China. Now, another thing on the invasion theory. People say Korea has been invaded by every country.
Not U.S.
They do this minimalization thing, they do this victimization thing. They talk about how they've been invaded so many times in every country of the world. You get the impression that Ecuador and Peru and everybody have invaded Korea, Madagascar. But they'll say, well, China invaded Korea. My response on my invasion theory thing is,
No, they didn't.
China never invaded Korea. Never, 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 never. And the people say, well, wait a minute. Tang came in to fight against Baekje with Sheila. That's a very different thing. They were invited in as an ally. You see, that's a different thing. It wasn't just an out-and-out invasion. And so after the unification wars were successful, it's true that China turned on Sheila. And it's true that Sheila and China had a brief battle or two, but ended the battle by settling it diplomatically. So the invasion of Korea by China is not much of an invasion. And that was the only case you can look at where China really did anything like invading Korea, okay? So this is all apropos of the unification wars, which is apropos of Kim Il-sung. And Kim Il-sung then was the in-law of Kim Chun-chu. Now that means that in this the Sheila society that had a very tight pinnacle at the top, remember the holy bone, true bone, the 6 head ranks, this sort of thing? Mm-hmm. This very strong hierarchical society, this society that would not allow Chechi One in, right, to the highest office. Mm-hmm. This very tight society that would not allow Chang Po-go to marry in. This very tight society had Kim Il-sung married in at the highest level, with the highest rank to be the general of the unification army. So Kim Il-sung was a very important person, and he was a Kaya person. See, so I like to point out that Kaya was not destroyed, but rather Kaya lives on in Korea. And the descendants of Kaya, our neighbor, the descendants of Sudowang, who are they? They're the Kim Hae Kim of Korea, right? Mm-hmm. And what percentage of Koreans are Kim Hae Kim? Around 10%, 10 or 11%. If you go to the Kim Hae Kim office, which is right in front of Sudowang's tomb, right across from the entrance to the tomb there. In previous years, our students have gone and interviewed those boys. They like to brag about not only the Kim Hae Kim, but the Yang Chun Ha. Everybody named Ha is a descendant of Sudowang. And also, there are a few splinter groups, like the Incheon E. That one girl in the class that raised her hand and said she was an Incheon E, that's from Sudowang. On the right. So E's and... How's she from Sudowang? She got a name change. Her ancestors changed names. One of the Goryeo kings gave that family the E name, although they originally were Kims.
But they were Kim.
Yeah, they were Kim Hae. And so...
does she know that?
She probably doesn't know that. But you look her up and ask her and see if she knows, okay?
Sure.
But if you go...
Short, dark hair,
dark eyes. Glasses. She had
Tan
glasses.
skin.
Like Kaya or something.
So if you go to that office and say, who are descendants of Sudowang, they'll say 14% of Korean population. Well, I like to say roughly 10 because it's half of the Kims, and the other half of the Kims are the Kyungju Kims, the descendants of Kim Chun-chu. And by the way, one more incident on the marriage of Kim Chun-chu and Kim Chun-chu's Kim Yu-shin's sister to Kim Chun-chu. They had a daughter, and who did that daughter marry? I told you once before.
The prince.
Who was her uncle?
Oh, the one, the twin Buddhas. Or
No,
the not,
that's a different story.
I see that too.
Thank you.
No, who did? Okay, Kim Yu-shin's sister marries Kim Chun-chu,
No.
and so Kim Yu-shin and Kim Chun-chu are brothers-in-law.
Yes.
Kim Chun-chu and Kim Yu-shin's sister they're married. They have a baby who's a girl.
Kim Yun-shin.
Who does that girl marry?
She marries Kim
Kim
Chun.
Yu-shin,
Yushin.
not Yoon, Yu-shin.
Oh,
Kim
that's what his name
Yu-shin.
is. Yushin.
Yu-shin.
Whoopsie.
Kim Yu-shin. She marries Kim Yu-shin, her uncle.
Oh,
And that's creepy, and you go, ugh, that's incest, you know. But back in those days, that was preferred marriage for the royalty. So in other words, that confirms the idea that this elite royal class at the top was very, very tight, which reconfirms the idea that the Kaya were not considered low class. The Kaya was not excluded from the highest ranks. The Kaya royalty were considered the highest in the highest.